When we speak about money, wealth, and power, we often think in terms of numbers and figures, profit and loss, growth and success. But in the eyes of Allah, true success is not measured by how much we earn, it is measured by how we earn it, how we spend it, and how we serve others through it. Islam doesn't reject wealth, it refines it. It doesn't deny ambition, it disciplines it. And nowhere is this balance more beautifully seen than in the comparison between Islamic banking and conventional banking. At the heart of this difference lies one simple yet profound truth. Islam teaches that wealth is a trust, not an ownership. Every single coin, every transaction, every investment is witnessed by Allah. It's not just about what we can get away with legally, it's about what is ethical, what is pure, and what is pleasing to the one who provides all sustenance. Conventional banking, as it exists today, operates on the foundation of interest, or riba. It is a system built on lending money to earn more money where wealth grows without effort, without labor, and often at the expense of those who have less. It may appear efficient on the surface, but beneath that surface lies a deep injustice. It creates debt-based economies, fuels inequality, and traps individuals, families, and even nations in cycles of poverty and dependency. The rich become richer, the poor sink deeper, and compassion is replaced by calculation. In contrast, Islamic banking is not just a financial alternative, it is a moral revolution. It brings humanity back into finance. It insists that money should serve people, not rule them. It transforms finance from a tool of oppression into a means of empowerment. In Islamic banking, the concept of partnership replaces exploitation. Profit and loss are shared, not manipulated. Risk is mutual, not one-sided, and transactions are tied to real assets, to actual value, not imaginary numbers that exist only in digital accounts. This difference changes everything. In Islamic finance, the relationship between the lender and borrower becomes a partnership of trust and shared responsibility, not one of power and pressure. It encourages cooperation over competition, fairness over greed, and balance over excess. It teaches that wealth should circulate, that it should flow like blood through the body of society, nourishing every part of the ummah, not just the elite few who control it. When we look around at the world today, we see the results of the conventional model everywhere: endless debt, collapsing economies, families struggling to pay off loans, nations enslaved by international interest systems. All of this stems from one root, riba, and riba is not just a financial issue, it is a spiritual disease. It hardens the heart, blinds the soul, and replaces gratitude with greed. Islamic banking, when practiced with sincerity, offers a cure. It teaches financial discipline grounded in faith. It builds systems of trade and investment that uplift rather than exploit. It reminds every Muslim entrepreneur, banker, and investor that success in this world means nothing if it leads to failure in the next. But let's be honest, not everything labeled Islamic today truly embodies the principles of Islam. Many so-called Islamic banks are still deeply tied to conventional systems, simply rebranding interest-based contracts with Arabic names. The appearance may be halal, but the essence remains questionable. True Islamic banking requires more than formality. It requires spirituality. It demands a return to ethics, sincerity, and real accountability before Allah. Islamic banking should not be a copy of the conventional system. It should be its alternative vision. It should represent justice, transparency, and compassion. It should be driven by the goal of community welfare, not corporate gain. A true Islamic financial institution sees its profits as a means to help the poor, to fund education, to support families, to encourage entrepreneurship, not as a way to accumulate personal wealth. The Prophet of Allah taught us that a believer's worth is not in what he stores, but in what he gives. That principle applies not only to individuals, but to entire systems. The difference between Islamic and conventional banking is ultimately the difference between giving and taking, between sincerity and exploitation, between serving Allah and serving desire. Imagine a world where every financial decision was made with taqwa, where every contract was written with fairness, where every investor thought about the accountability of the hereafter before signing a deal. That world would be free from financial injustice, free from debt traps, free from greed. That is the world Islam envisions, and that is the mission of Islamic finance. In conventional banking, the purpose of money is to make more money. In Islamic banking, the purpose of money is to build lives, to support families, to create opportunities for others, and to honor the commands of Allah. In one, the heart is attached to the market. In the other, it is attached to the divine. We must also remember that Islamic banking is not just for Muslims. Its principles of fairness, transparency, and shared risk are universal. It offers an ethical model that the entire world can benefit from, a system that aligns finance with morality. In a world drowning in greed, Islamic banking is a lifeboat of justice and mercy. But this vision will only come true if we, as Muslims, demand authenticity. We must support institutions that reflect our values, question practices that contradict our beliefs, and never compromise faith for financial gain. It starts with us, with how we borrow, how we invest, how we spend, and how we teach our children about wealth. Islam teaches us that wealth is not a goal, it is a test, and the one who passes is not the one with the biggest account, but the one whose earnings are pure and whose heart remains humble. Every coin that enters our hands must remind us of our accountability. Every transaction must be a testimony of our obedience to Allah. The Prophet's companions lived this reality. They traded honestly, shared generously, and never allowed their wealth to own their hearts. They understood that financial purity is a part of spiritual purity, that halal income brings peace to the soul, barakah to the home, and strength to the ummah. Conventional banking promises wealth but delivers worry. Islamic banking promises peace through purpose. It may not promise the same kind of quick worldly gains, but it offers something far greater: contentment, integrity, and divine blessing. We live in a world where the lines between right and wrong are often blurred. But for a believer, clarity comes from revelation, not trends. Islam gives us that clarity. It gives us a framework that protects us from injustice, a system that dignifies human effort, and a way of earning that feeds both the body and the soul. So, the next time we choose where to put our money, let's think beyond profit margins. Let's think of our intentions, our responsibilities, and our accountability. Let's remember that Islamic banking is not just about avoiding haram, it's about seeking barakah. It's about building a world that reflects divine justice, mercy, and compassion. And one day, when we stand before Allah, we won't be asked how much we earned, but how we earned it. We won't be asked how many properties we owned, but how we used them. We won't be asked how high our accounts went, but how pure our hearts remained. Islamic banking vs. conventional banking at its core is not a battle of systems, it's a battle of values. It's the struggle between greed and gratitude, between exploitation and ethics, between worldly success and eternal peace. May Allah make us among those who earn halal, spend wisely, give generously, and live with barakah. May He purify our wealth, bless our efforts, and help us build a financial system that reflects His justice and compassion, and may He protect us from the traps of riba, greed, and worldly illusion, because in the end, wealth that earns Allah's anger is not wealth at all, it's a burden. But wealth earned with sincerity, honesty, and faith, that is the wealth that shines in both worlds. Wealth in Islam is not a symbol of superiority or power. It is a sacred trust, a means to test our sincerity and obedience to Allah. Every coin we earn, every note we spend, and every possession we own carries within it a responsibility. The question that defines our destiny is not how much wealth we possess, but how we earn it, how we spend it, and what place it holds in our hearts. Islam never condemns wealth itself, it condemns the arrogance, greed, and heedlessness that often come with it. Wealth can either elevate the soul or enslave it. It can either draw us closer to Allah or drag us further away from Him. When it is earned through honest means, used for good, and shared with those in need, it becomes a light, a form of worship, a bridge to paradise. But when it blinds us to our responsibilities, when it makes us proud and selfish, it becomes a barrier between us and the mercy of our Creator. The companions of the Prophet understood this balance perfectly. They were successful merchants, businessmen, and landowners, yet their hearts were detached from the glitter of the world. They used wealth as a servant, not as a master. Their hearts belonged only to Allah. When they gave charity, they did so with joy, knowing that whatever is spent for the sake of Allah is never lost. They knew that wealth multiplies not through interest or accumulation, but through generosity and trust in Allah's promise. They lived simply, even when they could have lived in luxury. They saw wealth as a tool to serve humanity, not as a measure of success. Their legacy reminds us that material comfort without spiritual contentment is poverty in disguise. Today, however, the meaning of wealth has changed. In our world, people measure worth by possessions, fame, and status. The value of a person is often tied to the size of their house, the car they drive, or the clothes they wear. But Islam teaches that true value lies in the purity of the heart, in the goodness of deeds, and in the sincerity of intention. Money can buy many things: comfort, attention, even temporary happiness, but it can never buy peace of mind. It can never purchase forgiveness, and it can never replace the contentment that comes from faith. The greatest treasures are not stored in banks or safes. They are stored in the heart of the believer who trusts Allah completely. When wealth is pursued without purpose, it becomes a trap. People spend their lives chasing numbers that never end, working endless hours, sacrificing health, family, and peace for the illusion of success. The more they gain, the more they fear losing. This cycle of endless desire is what the Prophet warned us against. Wealth was never meant to control us, it was meant to test us. The more we have, the greater our responsibility becomes. We are accountable for every blessing, every possession, and every opportunity we are given. What we call mine is only borrowed from Allah for a short time, and soon we will leave it all behind. True wealth, therefore, is not measured by what fills our pockets, but by what fills our hearts. The believer who has little but is content has more richness than the one who owns everything but lives in anxiety. The one who trusts Allah in scarcity is richer than the one who doubts Him in abundance. Real wealth is the peace that comes from knowing you have earned your living through halal means and spent it in ways that please Allah. It is the smile you bring to someone in need, the debt you help repay for a struggling family, the education you sponsor for a child, the charity you give quietly in the night. That is wealth that will follow you to the next life, wealth that grows eternally. Our children must learn that success is not about building empires of gold, but about building hearts of gratitude. They must see through us that giving brings more joy than taking, that honesty brings more blessing than manipulation, and that simplicity is closer to the sunnah than extravagance. We live in an age where social media glorifies wealth, where people compete in luxury and appearances, where generosity is often replaced with showing off. But Islam calls us back to humility, to quiet acts of kindness, to a life where wealth serves faith, not the ego. If wealth becomes our obsession, we will lose ourselves. We will chase a mirage that only leaves us thirstier. But if we use it with purpose, if we see it as a means to do good, it becomes one of the greatest tools to earn Allah's pleasure. Wealth can build masjids, feed the hungry, educate the poor, and support dawah efforts that guide hearts back to Islam. The same money that can destroy a soul when used wrongly can also save it when used rightly. It is not the money that corrupts, it is the attachment to it that does. We must constantly remind ourselves that every blessing comes with accountability. On the day of judgment, we will be asked how we earned our money and how we spent it. Every investment, every business deal, every purchase will be examined under the light of truth. and no excuse will save us except sincerity. That is why we must purify our income, avoid what is doubtful, and be content with what is lawful, even if it seems less. For what is halal brings peace, and what is haram brings hardship, even if it appears profitable. Wealth can make life comfortable, but only faith can make it meaningful. The heart that remembers Allah finds peace even in poverty, while the heart that forgets Him remains restless even in luxury. That is why true wealth is freedom, freedom from greed, freedom from fear, freedom from dependence on anything except Allah. When you realize that sustenance comes only from Him, you stop chasing and start trusting. You stop fearing loss because you know that what is meant for you will never miss you. May Allah grant us hearts that value wealth for the right reasons. May He make our hands generous, our earnings pure, and our intentions sincere. May He bless us with the kind of wealth that brings us closer to Him, not further away, because in the end, it is not the size of our possessions that matters, but the size of our faith. True richness lies not in having much, but in being content with what Allah has given. When we understand this, we discover that the purpose of wealth in Islam is not to increase what we own, but to increase who we are in faith, in gratitude, and in generosity. In the world we live in today, we are constantly surrounded by bright advertisements and loud promises of success. Everywhere we look, we see offers that claim to make life easier, richer, and more comfortable, banks that promise freedom through loans, companies that encourage us to buy more, and systems that convince us that happiness is hidden behind a price tag. But in chasing this image of modern prosperity, humanity has lost something priceless: peace of mind, simplicity of heart, and gratitude for what we already have. The truth is that much of what is called progress today has chained people in invisible prisons of debt, anxiety, and greed. We have become slaves to numbers on screens, servants of systems that promise prosperity but deliver emptiness. People today have more possessions than ever before, yet they feel more restless than ever before. Homes are bigger, but hearts are smaller. Salaries are higher, but contentment is rarer. The world has taught us to chase wealth as if it were the only purpose of life, to measure success by what we wear, what we drive, and how we appear to others. But Islam teaches something far deeper, that prosperity is not about how much we have, but how we live with what we have. It reminds us that real success is not when our bank balance grows, but when our heart learns to be at peace. The illusion of modern prosperity lies in the idea that more means better, but the Prophet of Allah warned that greed never ends. The more a person gains, the more they crave. This endless desire keeps us in a cycle of restlessness. The house we once dreamed of becomes too small, the car we loved becomes outdated, and the comfort we once enjoyed becomes normal. We keep chasing, yet never arrive. This is how the illusion works. It makes us forget gratitude, and it replaces peace with pursuit. The system of riba is one of the greatest causes of this illusion. It creates false wealth, numbers that look impressive but are built on exploitation. It turns money into a weapon against the poor, making the rich richer and the struggling even weaker. It promises growth but destroys balance. When you live under a system built on interest, you are not earning, you are being consumed. Debt becomes normal, pressure becomes constant, and stress becomes a companion. People spend decades paying off loans for homes, cars, and education, yet never feel free. They live their entire lives serving systems that profit from their burden. Islam came to break this cycle of oppression. It offered a way to bring fairness and compassion into finance. The Quranic view of wealth is deeply moral. It is about justice, honesty, and trust. Islam does not reject trade or business. It purifies them. It reminds us that wealth should flow, not freeze, that money should serve humanity, not control it. The concept of halal earning is a shield that protects society from exploitation. It ensures that every transaction brings barakah, that every profit is pure, and that every contract carries conscience. When a believer earns through halal means, even a small income carries blessing. That wealth brings peace, not worry. It brings gratitude, not greed. A person who earns little but purely sleeps peacefully, while one who earns through deceit or interest may have millions yet lives in fear and dissatisfaction. Because the heart knows, deep inside, the soul recognizes when something is not pure. That is why no amount of wealth can calm a heart disconnected from Allah. True contentment cannot be bought, it is gifted by faith. Modern society measures prosperity by consumption. It convinces us that happiness lies in luxury, that joy comes from ownership. But Islam measures prosperity by peace, the peace of knowing you are honest, the peace of knowing your wealth is clean, the peace of seeing your blessings grow through generosity, not through greed. The Prophet's companions were wealthy traders, yet they lived simply. They had the world in their hands, but never in their hearts. Their contentment came from trust in Allah, not from their possessions. The illusion of modern prosperity is also emotional. It tells us that if we just achieve a little more, we'll finally feel fulfilled. Yet that moment never comes. We keep setting new goals, new dreams, new desires, never realizing that contentment doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. The heart that remembers Allah finds calm even in scarcity, while the heart that forgets Him remains anxious even in abundance. This illusion has also broken families and destroyed relationships. People work endless hours chasing wealth, leaving little time for prayer, family, or reflection. Parents are too busy to raise their children, spouses are too tired to connect, and the home which should be a place of peace becomes a place of pressure. We chase a standard of living but lose our standard of life. The pursuit of more often leaves us with less time, less gratitude, less joy. Islamic teachings bring us back to balance. They remind us that wealth is a blessing only when it leads to gratitude. They teach that real prosperity is when your heart is rich with faith, when your earnings are pure, and when your hands are generous. Islam does not tell us to abandon the world, it tells us to use it responsibly, to earn with honesty, and to spend with compassion. It connects our economy to our morality. It ties finance to faith, reminding us that every transaction is not just a deal between people, but a testimony before Allah. When we live by these principles, we begin to see through the illusion. We realize that a small home filled with peace is better than a mansion filled with tension, that a simple meal shared with love is richer than a feast earned through oppression, that a clean heart brings more joy than any luxury could provide. When you live with halal wealth, your sleep becomes deeper, your smile becomes truer, and your dua becomes stronger. Modern prosperity fades. It ends when markets crash, when debt grows, or when health declines. But the prosperity that comes from Barakah endures. It blesses your life, your children, and your afterlife. Halal wealth may seem smaller in numbers, but it carries the weight of blessings that multiply beyond measure. It nourishes the soul and strengthens the community. The world calls us to chase, but Islam calls us to choose peace over pressure, faith over fear, barakah over interest. Every believer must decide which kind of prosperity they want, the kind that ends at death, or the kind that begins there. When we live with trust in Allah, when we avoid riba and dishonesty, and when we prioritize gratitude over greed, we begin to taste a different kind of wealth, one that cannot be measured in numbers but only in tranquility. The illusion of modern prosperity may shine brightly, but it fades quickly. The light of halal living, of honest earning, of faith-based finance, that is the light that lasts forever. And when we leave this world, only that light will follow us. May Allah grant us the wisdom to see through the illusion, the strength to live with integrity, and the grace to be content with what is written for us. For the one who is content with Allah's decree is already the richest soul on earth.